Hi, and welcome to today's Storycrafter. Today I'm going to share with you the true story of how I was almost eaten by a wild bear. As you can see, I did survive, so don't worry, no Victorias or bears were harmed in the making of this Storycrafter. This story is called Touching the Wild, and it goes like this. Years and years ago, I was on a scholarship in an international boarding school, high school, in New Mexico, the United States. Things were not looking good. My boyfriend had just dumped me, my marks were going like this, and exams were piling up. I was super stressed and very close to a depression. So I did what every sensible teenage girl would do. I went to the wilderness program leader and I asked him to allow me to do a solo expedition. A solo expedition was a trekking trip you took over a weekend all by yourself in a national park that was close by. Now the leader looks at me and says, "Okay, Sofia, you don't like bugs. You are terrified of darkness. You are sort of lazy at trekking. I have no idea why you want to do this." I couldn't tell him that I was on the wilderness program, because it fulfilled my self-image of being a sporty and outdoorsy person. Well, the years I spent in that boarding school were the only 2 years in my life in which that image was actually sort of true. I'm still working on it. It's been more than 20 years. But I haven't given up hope, so I'll keep you posted on the progress of that. Anyway, I get the permission, get my equipment, my tarp, compass, maps, everything. There's only 2 problems with this trip. 1, I am actually terrified of darkness, so how am I supposed to sleep in the middle of the woods with no one close by? 2, the national park at that time is having a problem with wild bears. Okay, yeah, I realized that no school will allow a teenage person to go on their own in the middle of nowhere, a female of all things, nowadays. But this was the 90s, and the 90s were such a nice time to be a teenager. So I go into my trip, pick up my backpack, get dropped off at the drop-off point, start walking, and after a couple of hours, I'm still going, but feeling sort of tired. Because it's true, I am lazy, I have always been. And base camp calls on the radio, and the leader says, "Sofia, hi, could you tell us your location?" This is before GPS, okay? I take out my map and my compass, and I realize I have no clue of how to use the 2 things, because I'm the first aider of the wilderness program, not the navigator. So I look around and said, "Look, Tom," that was his name. "Look, Tom, I'm standing beside a really nice tree." And he goes, "You have no idea where you are." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, I have walked on the trail, and it's a wood trail, so there's no way I could get lost." He says, "Yeah, that's why I gave you that route, so that you wouldn't get lost." But I said, "Look, Tom, I really came here so that I could be by myself. So could I just camp here, and could you pick me up in the drop-off point instead of completing the route?" And he was not really happy about that, but I guess he figured that that was better than getting me lost somewhere in the national park. So he agrees. And I start looking for a place to camp. And I start devising a plan so that I won't be afraid of darkness. Well, listen to this plan, because according to me, it's total genius. My plan was to set up the camp and go to sleep before it was dark. So when nighttime would arrive, I would be fast asleep. Brilliant, I know. I know, it's brilliant. So I start looking for a place to camp, and that's when one of the most beautiful things of this trip happens. Because I get on a wooden bridge. See that on the stream there is a female deer having a bath. And she looks at me, and I looked at her, and she gets scared and jumps out of the water and into the woods. And when she does, the sunset light paints every single drop of water golden. So she jumps out, and all this water comes out, golden water. And it's been more than 20 years, and I can still remember it so clearly. It's one of the most beautiful moments of my life. I feel better already. I find a place to camp, set up my tent, and I am ready to sleep at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And I get into my sleeping bag and try to sleep. And that's what I'm doing 4 hours later when darkness sets in. Because I didn't have a tent, we just had a tarp which was on top and open on all the sides. And I was terrified, and I was holding the radio and thinking, oh my God, I should call base camp and ask for rescue, but that wouldn't have looked good. So I try to breathe in, try to breathe out, and nothing is working. And nothing works all through the night, because really every time I hear a sound, I jump. And there's so many sounds in the wild woods. So I'm there. It's almost, I guess, around 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm finally falling to sleep. I have achieved this by closing my sleeping bag so much that only my nose was sticking out, so that no bugs would bug me. And that's when I hear it. There are steps coming down. Big, heavy steps. And I think, oh my God, is that a bear? Did I put up the food way away from my camp? Yes, I did. Did I follow every single instruction? Yes, I did. Okay. It's going to go away. It's going to go for the food. But it doesn't. The steps start getting closer to my tarp. And I freeze in utter fear. And I'm, oh my God. I realize there's more than one. Just my luck, right? I'm going to get eaten not by one bear, but by the whole pack. I'm thinking, oh my God. And I start crying, because really, I see no way out of this. I'm trapped in the sleeping bag. There's no way I can run. This thing is circling my tarp and getting closer. There's no one around. And then I hear the thing stand in front of my head, and it breathes on top of me. I can feel its warm breath. I know I am not dreaming. Everything stops, and I think, if I open my eyes, the last thing I'm going to see is the bear's teeth going. And the creature breathes again on top of me. So I gather all my courage, and I look, and I open my eyes, and I see a huge gray head on top of me. And for some reason, that gets me out of my frozen panic state. And I go, ah! And I jump out of the sleeping bag. And the creature is so startled, so surprised that it backs up. And it goes, God, it was a pack of wild donkeys that were eating my tarp. They were eating my food. They were eating my clothes and my sleeping bag. So as soon as I get off the sleeping bag and I try to get them out and shoo them off, they won't go. So I have to take out my emergency whistle and blow it in their ears until they finally buggered off. Now at this point I realized 3 things. 1, I was extremely glad to be alive. 2, there was no way I would go to sleep again. 3, the emergency whistle was good for nothing. Nobody came to help me. Nobody could hear it. I was miles and miles and miles away from anyone. I sit down next to a tree and I decide not to sleep anymore. And daylight finds me like this. But alive. So I was glad. And then I think that I should do something sensible and natural. Yes, because I haven't done enough sensible things so far. So I take out my drinking water and I decided to take a shower with them because I was not going to use them. So I strip off all my clothes. I stand up in the morning light. I'm feeling so natural and pagan. And I take out the water and go, the water bottle and go, it's cold. It's freezing. And as I'm doing that, I hear other steps. And I look around. And it's not a bear. This is why I almost was killed by a bear, because there are no real bears in this story. And I see 2 deers, a female and a male. The male had beautiful horns, and they are just walking on the meadow. And they walk until they are right in front of me. And they look at me. And I look at them. And I swear they look at each other. And they start running. And I see them running all through the meadow. And I sit down on the grass. My heart is going. And then a pack of wild horses come by. And I sit there and I look at them. And they are curious about my camp and my son and me. And they get closer, grazing. They get closer and closer and closer. And I just don't move. I have an odd feeling that because I'm not wearing any clothes, they feel threatened by me. Now I know this might be crazy, but that's how I feel at the time. And so I don't make a movement. And they keep getting closer. At some point, one of them is so close, I can almost touch him. And I do. And touching a wild horse, it is nothing like touching a tamed one. I'm touching this creature and I'm feeling so part of this place. I'm feeling oneness with this whole place, the woods, the nature, the bags. And after that, when they wander off, I take up my things, get picked up, and the wilderness leader says, "So, do you feel better? Did you find what you were looking for?" And I answered yes, because I wish that each one of you in your lifetime gets to touch true wilderness, true free spirits. Because for me, in very subtle ways, it changed everything. Thank you very much. I must tell you, and I want to tell you, that this story was brought to you by very nice patrons that help me keep up with my work and deliver more free content each month with just $1 a month. So if you are keen on my work, want my videos, please consider contributing. It also it makes my volunteer work of telling stories to sick children in hospitals possible. Thank you so much. The links are in the description. Bye.